Hi, my name is Heidi Ohan, and today I'm here to talk to you about why and how you should be making your own bagels at home versus when you buy them at the store. So when you buy bagels at the store and you look at the package, you'll notice that the package has an ingredient list, and that ingredient list is 20, sometimes 30 different ingredients. But when you make it at home, you're using 6, 7, depending on the toppings that you want to use. Different ingredients in that recipe. So when you're making bagels at home, you're going to use all-purpose flour, active yeast, sugar, salt, water, and baking soda to boil them. And then depending on the toppings, that's a personal preference. When you buy them from the store, you have the norm: sugar, salt, flour, yeast, but you also have a whole bunch of other things in there, like mono and diglycerides. You have maltodextrin, guar gum, sorbic acid to keep it fresh. That's what keeps everything shelf stable for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, much longer than anything that you would be making from home. When you make them at home, you have more variety and you get to choose what ingredients you use. So if you did want to use some of those shelf-stable ingredients to help you out and keep them fresh longer, me personally, I freeze them, and that's what keeps them fresh longer, and that way they don't rot. That's your prerogative, but you don't have to accept that those things are in there. You're allowed to make changes and make your own things whichever way you want. Also, you're in control of what ingredients might come in contact with the product that you're eating. My husband has a very, very, very severe allergy to any kind of nuts, tree nuts, ground nuts, all of them. So when we buy foods, almost every food that we buy will say made in a bakery that also uses milk, eggs, and tree nuts, which always makes us nervous because you never know if there was a tree nut touching the bagel as it went down the line, or if they made something with some sort of nut in the oven and then stuck those bagels right in there. We've had a couple of scary instances where we've bought some things from the store that say that, and even though they're like, oh, it's okay, it's no big deal, I have had to drive my husband to the emergency room. So that's another plus about making everything at home. When you make your bagels at home, you get to eat them fresh out of the oven. That's another plus for me, which if you've never had a bagel fresh out of the oven, it's unlike anything that you could buy in the store. You don't have to toast them. The outside gets nice and crisp and the inside stays nice and chewy. And the key to that is making sure that you proof them the perfect amount of time. You want a warm temperature area to let them proof covered. And you don't want them to overproof. So you don't want to set them down in a really hot area and forget about them, because then they get air bubbles in them and it doesn't make for an ideal bagel. When you proof them and you're getting ready to roll them out, once you roll them out, you want to make sure that you're not over kneading them, because that also makes them very dense and very hard. They don't puff up when you cook them. And then the number one mistake that people make is not boiling your bagels. You want to use water, some sort of sweetener of your choice. Me personally, I use honey and baking soda. You bring that to a boil, and once your bagels are formed into the rounds, you plop them into that water 1 minute on each side, and that's how you get that crispy outside that gives you a nice snap and a nice bite, and it leaves the inside to get nice and fluffy. And another tip is also, if you're going to put toppings on them, I recommend making a tent out of foil. So when you're baking them, about halfway through, you're supposed to turn the pan so they don't burn, flip it around, and then I like to use some foil that builds up a little bit higher than the bagels, and it makes like a nice little tent on top, so that way your toppings also don't burn, because there's nothing worse than a burnt onion or burnt cheese on top of your bagel. Also, another plus about making your bagels at home is I bake them in an 8-count setting, or I bake 8 bagels at a time, and I like to switch up the toppings. I have 2 daughters, 5 and 6, and they're both extremely different. So buying bagels at the store, that is their favorite breakfast food, and it does get quite expensive if you have 2 kids that like 2 different flavors. Neither one of my kids will eat just a plain bagel with cream cheese. They like to try different things. But one likes things more sweet and one likes things more savory. So when I buy them from the grocery store, they usually come in 6 to 8 count, and I have to fully commit to 2 different flavors, 2 different bags of bagels. But when I make them myself, I can mix and match. I also let them help me, so we get to create our own combinations and new combinations each and every time. So usually I'll let them pick 2 different flavors, and that's 4 bagels per kid, and then we usually have about 4 different flavors. Mixing and matching the toppings is a fun way to let your kids try new things, learn about what they like, and also grow in creativity. Thank you.